guys all so much for being here. This is really trying to make this timely, with this wedding planning podcast. We had scheduled, catering, roundtables, and bartending and all these other things. And then, Governor Inslee came out and, we're really restricted with the, just wedding ceremonies and really the focus on that. And so I thought, no better, than to get a group of, awesome officiants. Ray and Chanelle have both been on the Get to Know Your Wedding Pro podcast, and Elaine, I'm sure we'll get you on here in the future. But I really appreciate you guys all, because I think that just the amount of weddings you guys have seen, the knowledge you guys have, I think is so important. And I really want to focus this discussion today on the benefits. What can we still do with wedding ceremonies? How can we make them important? I was telling you guys before we started recording, I've just heard so many people lately, well, we're going to do the real wedding next year. We're just going to do whatever this year. And, even like this feeling of like regret or like FOMO or whatever, that they're not having like the real thing right now. And so I want to focus on the positives that we can get from having, amazing ceremonies and what ideas and things you guys have. So thank you guys all so much for being here. Elaine, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll go around and then we can get going.
Sure. Hi, Reed, and thanks a lot for having me here today. I'm Elaine Way, and my company is Seattle Wedding Officiants. I've been around for about 11 years and just loving my job, born and raised here in Seattle, so pretty intimate with all the different areas you can get married now during phase 2 of COVID. So great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Reed.
Awesome. And Chanelle was just on the Get to Know Your Wedding Pro like 3 weeks ago, and we had a great discussion. So why don't you say hi and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Chanelle Carlin, and I am based in North Central Washington, but I travel all over the state and perform marriage ceremonies, primarily elopements and the mini wedding ceremonies. And that's really my specialty. I love doing that, the intimacy. I do larger weddings as well, but most of my weddings by far are outdoors and elopements and mini ceremonies. Fewer than 30 people by far.
And it truly wouldn't be a wedding officiant roundtable if we didn't have Ray on. I want to thank you so much for coming on. But I mean that just been around forever. I know we've worked together. I can't even remember. I think we figured it was like the first wedding I ever did that you were the officiant for, and that was 7 years ago. So introduce yourself. I mean, no introduction needed, but what's going on?
Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Ray Van Winkle. My company is Reverend Ray Van Winkle and Associates. I've been in the officiating business since 2003. Previous to that, worked as a floral designer and, believe it or not, had a catering company once back in the 1980s. We do all sorts of weddings, religious, non-religious. We do naturally a lot of elopements these days, but we're also on the recommended vendor list at most of the major venues in the Puget Sound area. Thanks for having me. I think I was one of also in addition to one of your first weddings, I think one of your first podcasts I was when I was interviewed by you way back when you first started all this.
I know, like 3 years ago, your stage acting days in, I think, San Francisco we talked about. So if anyone...
Yep, exactly. Very, very helpful for being a wedding officiant, being able to jump right out there and be on stage, so to speak, in front of a lot of people and not have that learning, that performance learning curve or the nerves or stuff like that.
Awesome. So first off, and if someone could answer this for me, because I have this genuine question, the Zoom officiating right now, remote officiating, I see that posted a lot. Is that a thing right now? I see a lot of head shakings. Okay, because I filmed a wedding ceremony 2 weeks ago, and they had a judge on like on Zoom, and then we were on site, but we filmed it. So that's not a thing. Is that who wants to tackle that?
I'm here in as far as I know, and Elaine, you can back me up on this because I know you're really in contact with the government here. To my knowledge, Zoom weddings are only legal in New York State and California, and that's because the governors did a declaration or mandate that they were. I don't believe they are legal here in Washington. I mean,
I agree.
you can certainly get on Zoom and just blah, 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 say whatever you want, but when pen comes to paper, it's not legal.
Yeah, no virtual weddings are authorized in Washington State. A lot of people are, of course, streaming their weddings. That's a different thing, though. So no, you can't get married virtually in Washington State yet. Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah.
And are we running into trouble with people maybe trying to do that, and then with paperwork and things? Is that going to be an issue down the line?
No, I mean, and that's where being a professional officiant comes in, is really important, because your officiant will tell you you can't do that. Now, if they want to go out somewhere and find somebody else who, personally, I will not do that. And so if somebody comes to me and says, this is what our plans are, we want to blah, 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 I know what's right and what's wrong, what's allowable, and I'm going to say no if they want to do something like that. So really, it's up to the professionals to sort of lead our couples and let them know where we're at with all these proclamations. But I don't see that becoming an issue. They won't be legally married, is the bottom line, if they try to do that.
And I remember there had been some discussion on some of the Facebook groups a while ago that there could be complications down the line if, let's say, you ended up wanting to get divorced, or heaven forbid something happened, and like, well, that wasn't a real wedding, or that wasn't a real thing. And, it's right. I mean, Chanelle, what do you think about that? Like, it's just a tricky line where, just try to get someone else on site. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I officiated one of those California weddings during the very limited time frame that the governor authorized it. So it's April 30th to June 30th. And so on May 30th, I officiated a virtual wedding for one of my couples who had intended to be in Washington, but COVID, didn't allow their travel. And the date was really important to them to actually get married. So they went ahead and they were able to get their license in California. And the governor's proclamation for that time period was that your officiant could be anywhere. But the paperwork was a challenge, because the governor's proclamation didn't actually really clarify how that could look. So when and it said they could email their marriage certificate to the officiant for signing, which they did do. I signed it, sent back the original with my original signature on it. The county wouldn't accept it. So then they had to redo the paperwork, send me their original, which had a front and a back, have me sign it. I FedExed, we did this all by FedEx, send it back to them. And then the county was happy with it. But because that clarification wasn't there, there was a lot of extra steps. And that's really, I think, one of the challenges with virtual things, that not everybody's on the same page. The governor can say whatever he likes, but it still is up to the county auditors and the county clerks to implement everything. And it's just more difficult.
Yeah, amen, Chanelle, because that's where I think a lot of the challenges are coming with this new time in our wedding industry. The governor, puts this information out, but it needs to trickle down to the various industries in really concrete, verbiage. And I've been really confused about a lot of things. So that's a perfect example where, sure, it's phase 2, but what does that exactly mean, for the wedding industry? So that's fascinating, though, that you did one of those. That's interesting.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Yeah.
The problem with not knowing what's legal and what's not extends not only to the virtual wedding world, but just in general. It seems like with the changes of mandates, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And then on top of that, I think we'll all agree another challenge we've had lately is the wedding couples who want to try to get around the rules and bend things, and no, we're not really considering this a reception, it's just a group of people getting together, or the private venue who says, oh, well, we don't need to, we're following the restaurant rules. We don't need to follow the wedding rules. Brides and grooms who want to have more than the allowable amount of people outdoors and want you to kind of just, don't.
And that's so hard, I mean, I think in the beginning when this all started, I was so nervous, and I was on the phone to Ray like once a week, sometimes twice a week. What does it mean? Can we do this? And we're still communicating. And I was so nervous that I was doing the right thing and that I wasn't going to lose my license or whatever. But now, I've done several elopements, and August has gotten really busy. And the thing is about these venues that are having 30 people or less, which is allowed. They're not supposed to have a reception. And Ray, you're right. They're turning these things into dinner parties. But you know what? I leave after the ceremony. So I'm sorry. You can do whatever you want, because I'm not going to get into it with you. We're social distancing and wearing masks for the ceremony. And then, I'm going to do my job and then have at it, because
not our responsibility.
No, I just
make other venues or vendors conform to what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I just don't want to get into it with people. Although I just don't want to get into it, because you're right. They're really trying to get one past us. That's for sure.
Yeah, we had I think 2 episodes ago we posted, and I really would encourage anyone to listen. I think I called it like what now, like what, this was right when Inslee had come out with everything. And that was my big takeaway, and our big takeaway was really, I think finally now, like August, let's, because in March, I think we were like, okay, whatever. Okay, April. Okay, when's it going to get? And now it's like, I think in August now, I think we have had enough time now. We need to reframe the way we are thinking about this thing, and really not focusing on, well, what can't we do? It's what can we do, and not trying, like you said, like skirt the rules, or we're not going to look, or we're not going to whatever. Like, I think that I've just seen so many things and questions, and I still see photographers posting, my couple wants me to do this and that. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I just had one of our brides said, hey, asking about masks and stuff. I said, I can't tell you what to do. I mean, we're going to be protected. Obviously, the mandates, but like, I can't, what am I going to do? Walk up to you and put it on your face during, I mean, I just can't, right? I can't dictate that kind of behavior. So it's tough. But
yes.
Have you guys, so with the rise of kind of like you were saying, all this uncertainty and what's going on and people worried about doing the right things, I've seen a lot of increase of people looking for pro officiants. Have you guys seen that, just as people wanting to make sure like this is all kosher? Ray, I saw you nod. Is that?
Yeah. I think I actually have. What's happened for me is both. There are new people coming out looking for my professional services, and naturally, most of my already booked clients who are rescheduling till next year are still doing an elopement this year. But with I mean, there's still plenty of people getting their friends ordained and all that kind of stuff, but that really doesn't work for an elopement kind of situation where you want to look like yesterday. I was at the Salish at 1:00 in the afternoon. You want your friend to do the wedding. He or she can't do it because they can't get off work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many reasons to have a professional officiant. We were talking earlier about the virtual situation. Just having somebody there who knows how to fill out the darn paperwork correctly. That paperwork goes to Olympia, it can get kicked out in a second if it's not correct. And it's just a big nightmare for the couple. So there's so many reasons, I believe, to have a professional officiant.
Chanelle, have you seen an uptick too? I've just seen a lot of just like posts, even our elopement that we just booked for like end of August. They're looking for one because and even their thing was they were like, well, they're like, well, I guess like we could, have someone like a friend or whatever, but they're like, we want just vendor like pro people because we don't want someone to feel bad. Like, oh, well, we asked someone or asked someone to put themselves like at risk. Not that like, that it's, I think you can be safe and not be at risk, but like that they really wanted like a pro, have you seen a lot of people looking lately for officiants?
Well, I've certainly seen an increase because I've had a number of folks come to me with their plans have all had to change. So I think like Ray was saying that they had these other events planned, whether they were traveling, to do elopements out of state or out of the country, and all of that's had to change. And so they still want to get married at the time that they were planning to get married. So now they're having to find somebody else who can do it. I've had one couple recently who said their professional officiant couldn't do it, or wouldn't do it for them right now. So they needed to find somebody else in order to keep their date, which I was quite surprised at. And I didn't ask who it was because, obviously we do what we need to do for our businesses and for our health and safety.
It was probably me. I'm just kidding.
They're coming a mighty long way for you.
I'm just kidding, but I have had to say no to, more than a few couples.
Yeah. Well, and people have to, and also our time schedules now. I have a lot of folks coming to me in the month of August, and I'm like, can we spread some of this out to September and October, please?
Yeah, I know August is crazy. It really.
It for some reason it has become really, really busy. But yeah, so I've had a number of folks come to me for different reasons, but in very short order. Can you do a wedding for me this week? Can you do one for me tomorrow? Can you do one for me on the 29th of August? Because nobody else can fit me in that day.
Yeah. They already have their licenses.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I'm so excited to talk about this finally. It's like I've been quarantined forever. But yeah, a lot of them already have their licenses and they want to do something. So I think that's why we in particular are very busy right now.
I know. So before we recorded, I said one of the main reasons I wanted to do this today was I've seen a lot of people post and I've talked with a lot of couples lately, and the mindset is, we're going to do whatever this year, we're going to do our real wedding next year, or hey, I did one now, but it's not what it was. Do I regret that, or is that not really a thing, or do I feel like I missed out, or whatever? And obviously, I don't believe that, right? And I don't think any of you guys do, because I think the wedding ceremony is, it's super important and meaningful, and I think you can find.
Without the ceremony, it's just a party.
Well, exactly. So I want each of you guys to touch on that and your thoughts on that, because I have seen that a lot, and I feel bad for these brides. I know the bride that we talked to the other day. I mean, I could just see it in her face talking. She's like, "Well, we're just not going to do the real thing this year." And I'm like, "No, but it is. Like, you need to. I want you to like get your mind around that it is going to be awesome. It is going to be exciting." So let's start with Ray and go around. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Hearing that people are feeling that way.
Yeah, that was always a kind of a pet peeve of mine over the years, and Chanelle and Elaine, you may corroborate this or not, but I used to get the feeling, especially when people tend to leave the officiant decision for the very, very last, that I swear I would tell my other vendor friends that sometimes I think the invite should go out that says you are cordially invited to a party. And oh yeah, we're having a wedding. It's kind of nice and refreshing right now to see an emphasis on the ceremony, because basically the ceremony is all anybody is able to do right now. For example, though, Reed, I've had kind of almost the opposite in the experience that you've had in some of my couples, and especially the couple I dealt with just yesterday at the Salish. They were supposed to get married 2 years ago. She got pregnant, so they decided to postpone till this spring. We all know what happened. So her fiance surprised her with an elopement ceremony. To them, me, the two witnesses were the wedding planner and the photographer. And after she got over the initial shock of, oh my God, this is really happening now, told me that it was the best thing that ever happened to her. There was no stress, no drama, no trauma. They were able to concentrate on the two of them and what they were doing and getting married and not have to worry about all the other plans and details in the party and who do we invite and who don't we invite. They really focused on what was important to them, and they're perfectly happy with celebrating next year with a big ceremony and a big reception.
Chanelle, what do you think?
I love that.
Well, I have had both on both sides of the spectrum, really. So I have a couple who is getting married in October, and they've been planning their wedding ceremony for quite a while. And it's the daughter of a friend of mine from high school. That's how they came to me. And she was initially the one of the people who was, we'll just do something now, and so we can get married, and then we'll have the real wedding next year. And so what I said to her is, honey, you're getting married. I said, there is no real wedding next year. You can have your party next year. And if you want to do a vow renewal or something like that, that's what it will be. But you will not be getting married again next year. You're either getting married now or you wait. That part's up to you. But it took her, I said, and we'll redo your ceremony so that it's an elopement. It's really just about the two of you. So it feels really special to do right now, so that this is not just going to be a one shot and then a two shot. This is you're really getting married, and it's just all about the two of you. It's an elopement ceremony. And then once she got that and she saw what we were creating, it was a very different, perspective that she had. I think she started to really see, okay, and now we'll have our party next year. And I just did a ceremony for a couple in Chelan. They had a big wedding planned on the East Coast with their families, and obviously had to change everything. So then they decided themselves they were just going to do an elopement. Their witnesses were their two photographers. So they were going to do it up in the hills above Chelan, but then they decided they had rented an Airbnb right on the lake, literally. So we stood on the dock. Nice. I stood on the edge of the dock.
Nice.
Thankfully, it was 2 levels, and they stood towards the land because she's in her dress and high heels. And we did a beautiful ceremony. And afterwards, they told me that no matter what they had originally planned, that this was how it was meant to be, and they knew it, and they were delighted, and it was so special. They were so grateful.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's what this is. That's exactly what it is. And if we have to help you get there, that's okay. We will help you get there. Yeah. But it's about the marriage.
I love that. So, I feel like I'm part-time bereavement counselor and part-time cheerleader all the time. And it's all about expectations, and that's the way it's always been with these weddings. Some of these brides, since the time they were little girls, they had their wedding wishes planned and their fantasy wedding planned. And so this has got to be devastating for a lot of people who, I talked to a new client the other day, and she said, we've been planning our wedding for 2 years. And I just thought, this must be so frustrating. But, her expectations have changed. She's got a great attitude. They're bringing it down a notch, and we're going to make something beautiful. And so, there's all different types of scenarios that I'm sure that we've all experienced. But I think the main thing is being able to, hold our couple's hands and let them know that we're still on board. We're still cheering you on. And that's a great idea. Let's do that. And they're still getting a great ceremony. The ceremony situation hasn't changed. But not many, probably 5 or 6 of my large weddings have postponed to next year. So that's a whole nother thing. But I wanted to share my flower. Can you see my flower?
I can.
Beautiful.
Okay, so here's a good example of a large wedding at Canlis that got canceled. And the couple opted to do an elopement at Parsons Gardens. And the bride arrived just looking stunning, and the groom looked so handsome. They had their dog. I got them a photographer. They got me a corsage. And they were so happy. They streamed it actually to their family all around the country as well. So it's like, it's all right now, it's all about making lemonade out of lemons. That's just the way it is. And I think our role as the officiant is to get on that train and get it going in a positive direction if we can. And I will honestly admit that we can't always. I mean, there are these I've had a couple of situations where they were just so angry that they just gave up. And yeah, so that's really unfortunate, but we do the best we can with all of our couples. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, and as a wedding vendor, and we've moved a lot of them to next year, and we've done a lot of the ceremonies now and then moved. And if it was me, it was the universe telling me to get an officiant, photographer, maybe a videographer, stream it, and then put the rest of the money to a house or something at this point. I mean, honestly, like that's it. It's so, I mean, I would do it, and I would just say, this is just the universe telling me not to do it right now. And I don't,
Agreed.
and I get it. Like, I absolutely get that the big thing is important for a lot of people, and I absolutely value that. But it's tough, and it's a tough decision to make. But I think, like you said, just trying to really recognize the importance of what we have now, I think. And like I said, I'm a wedding vendor. We want people to spend all the money on everything, but I think sometimes, you just can't. I want to talk about, and I'm sure you guys have seen all sorts of different creative, things. I'm sure even this year, with ceremonies and things, because I want people to have some takeaways from this podcast at the end of the day, right? Like, oh, that would be a good idea that I could do for my, people that are getting married right now that still want it to be important. What would you guys, and maybe you have already talked to some of your couples about it. What would you, recommend that, people think about incorporating or doing, things that you've seen work well? Chanelle, maybe we'll start with you. Any good ideas?
Well, to make it be special is, when you're having to shrink your invitations down from 150 to 30, looking at thinking really about, not who's important to you, but if you could only have a small group of people there, who would be the most important and why? But one of the things that I did, this couple that I just did their ceremony for on Tuesday, they had a book that she had given him as a gift when they first started dating. And it was really impactful for the two of them. And they really wanted us to incorporate a reading from the book. So I actually themed their whole ceremony around that. I themed their opening and their clothing and their vows, just the whole concept around it, because it was so impactful for the two of them. And if they have special music that's important to them, I really, that can be really helpful. That's one of the things that I actually thought, and it makes it easier to write a ceremony. If you have something that's really important to you, let us know what it is, and then we can absolutely create and incorporate something so that you can then say, yes, I love this, or, let's do something different.
Rui, what about you? I remember, and I just was thinking about writing the ceremonies. We had a wedding, I think it was 2 years ago, and you had known, it was that Stephania, and you had known her. You guys had worked together or something. And I remember,
yeah, Stephania, yes.
But I remember I was like editing it, and I literally took the time to like email you, and I was like, wow, like that was such a good, it's just funny. But anyway, I made me think about that. What about you? What are some things that you're talking to people?
The thing that I like to emphasize or do when all possible, with the elopement situation, oftentimes you don't have family there, or if you do have family, it's only a couple family members. And in an elopement, you typically, at least I typically, don't do the dad walking daughter down the aisle, who gives this woman, etc. But what I like to do, and I like to do this in big weddings as well as elopements, but it really helps make things more special with the elopement, is if we have a little bit of audience participation. And Rather than having your dad or your mom or somebody there to quote, give you away, unquote, we have everyone give you away. Do all of you here today promise to support person A and person B in their married lives? If so, please respond, we do. And everybody very enthusiastic. We
Oh,
do.
that's cute. I like that.
Yeah. It makes the guests that you do have, it makes them more participants rather than just observers in the ceremony.
That's good. Elaine, what about you?
Gosh, so my answer is really practical. I thought about this, and I think to really make it memorable, get a photographer. I mean, sorry, but get a professional photographer, and because a lot of these elopements are happening in some really beautiful environments. The Washington Park Arboretum, Discovery Park. I was at Parsons Gardens. I'm going up to Mukilteo on Saturday. So if this is it, why not get a photographer to really capture your moments? That's because they're still going to get all the same things that they always get from me, which is a customized ceremony and my presence as a professional, but for the memory of the event, and something to look back at that confirms that we really did this, we really made this happen, and our best people were there, 30 or less, whatever, dogs, whatever. So I think photography is a really important piece of recording their memories during a really challenging time.
Especially when you can look back, and I'm doing this now. I was married 40 years ago next January, and we look back at our photos of the wedding, and it's like, oh my God, who are those kids? They're letting babies get married these days.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Wow. Oh, you look the same, Ray, I'm sure.
And Reed, I gotta tell you, just for your own edification, when I got married, there was no such thing as videotape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exaggerating slightly, there was, but this was before the VHS versus beta. Video was a 3/4 inch U-matic, giant cassettes. They were only used like in newsrooms, in podcasts.
Yeah.
No such thing as wedding videography back then.
Certainly not streaming online. Like that one we did like last week. They were now, this wedding that we don't know if it was a real wedding or not, but the ceremony that I filmed, and all their family was in Italy, like in Venice, watching the thing in like their apartments. And I was like, this is freaking awesome. Like, I mean, 2020 sucks for a lot of reasons, but we do have the technology now that you can, they were sitting there with a glass of wine on their couch in wherever, some mountain town in Italy.
I love that.
Love that. It was funny.
Can I share something that happened on Tuesday? So
do.
This beautiful ceremony right on Lake Chelan. It was so absolutely gorgeous. Took place in the evening just as the sun had gone down, and it was breathtaking. So, Lake Chelan, busy outdoor lake, and this is on the South Shore, so it was way far away from the main activity, but people like to boat on Lake Chelan, and they like their speedboats on Lake Chelan. And somebody decided they wanted to do a little lap right around. And this was a really loud, like, jet boat. So we're in the middle of the ceremony. I'm just going through, this really special part that was really meaningful for the two of them right before they're going to say their own vows. Mm-hmm. And he comes by, and he's really, really loud. So they're just looking at me. And so I just stopped because this was their ceremony. They're streaming as well all across the country so that their family can hear. And I know nobody can hear anything. My husband was like across the yard, and I asked him later, could you hear me? And he's like, yeah, not a word. So I stopped. He comes around. He's so loud that he's out of sight, and you can still hear him so loud. They wouldn't even start their vows until he was gone. Once she finally started her vows, he comes around again. I thought, you can see these. You can see. Yeah. I mean, how rude are you? Yeah. You can see there's a wedding happening. Clearly, they're standing on a dock. 3 people. and you're just going to spin around on the lake.
Rude. But you know what, Chanelle?
But they'll remember it. They have a great memory.
Yeah. But I just want to point out again about, you know what, that's why you're a professional. You know, you knew to stop.
Yeah.
You know, you knew to make light of it. You know, whereas somebody who maybe just got ordained the day before would have kept talking, you know. It's just one of those things that we do. I know I've done weddings down at the Corson building before, which is right next to the airport, and the planes are, you know, Ray, and the planes are coming over, and I always have my little comment that I make, ground control to Major Tom. You know, but that's why we're professionals and we know how to handle that.
If it's not that, then it's the you're at the Edgewater Hotel or you're at the aquarium outdoors, and you know how the trains, the freight trains, they come and they stop and they back up and then they go
planes and automobiles.
You know, Chanelle, when you were talking about the speedboat going by, it made me think of, and Elaine, I know you've been there a lot yourself too, how many weddings we've done on the Scansonia on Lake Union, where in the middle of the ceremony, there's usually some jackass in a boat coming right up yelling, "Don't do it! Mom, it's not too late!"
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Or how about, remember Lake Union Crew on that big dock out there? I mean, they would come down and like do some pretty like obscene things when I mean, I don't even want to go there, but yeah, we've all seen it all. I can confirm that for sure.
Make your elopement special by having somebody moon you in the background.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We were actually just at Salty's. Yesterday was our anniversary, and we went and had dinner. We got married at Salty's. Thank you. And but when we got married there, you know, we were on the dock down below, and it was right. We got through our vows, and then it was right during the rings, and this little you hear this like this little tiny motorboat, and these two guys like fat beer gut with their shirts off, drinking beer, like cruising around. And one of my buddies was sitting there. He's like, "Reed, did you hire that boat to get video from from like shooting video from the backside?" And I was like, "No, but that would have been really smart. I should have done that." But that does it does lead me to a good point though, and I think that's again looking at like the positives of all this. Doing an elopement, you know, just the couple, you know, officiant, you know, like you said, photographer, whatever. I think we are allowed a lot more flexibility of, you know, where we can do things, right? Where, you know, on the dock, or like, you know, we did one at like Lake Wilderness, just, you know, just like a pop-up, whatever. Can you guys talk about that and just some of the benefits of maybe being able to like get married somewhere that you could never have 200 people somewhere and do a wedding, but here you can find somewhere that's, you know, really unique. I know that Callie Holcomb's a planner. She was on one of the podcasts. One of her couples was thinking about doing it like in front of a Starbucks where they met or whatever. What are the logistics with all that? How does that work? I don't know if that's even all allowed, but what do you guys think about that? Elaine, you seem really motivated to talk.
Well, I mean, this has just been the bane of my existence, trying to figure out the numbers for city versus private elopements or weddings. You know, we all know now that the venue limit is 30 people, no receptions. And I've been doing a lot of elopements at city parks. And I was pretty sure that I was correct in my thinking that you could only have 5 people or less, and that included me, the officiant or whatever. And I just was able to get that confirmed, not from the governor's office, but from—
They don't respond.
Well, when I've got somebody on the line, but they didn't know. They were like, well, it says here that blah, blah, blah. So I went right to the source. I went to the city of Seattle, and I got email confirmation and a voicemail saying you can only have 5 people. And so what that allows, though, are opportunities to be in hundreds of beautiful settings, some with views of Lake Washington, some with views of Lake Union, Puget Sound. It's just incredible. Really, there's a lot of options to have these small weddings. And so being a native of Seattle and Washington, I'm and also having dialed into elopements years ago, they're kind of my first love. And now I'm focusing on elopements exclusively. And so I'm in my element. I'm really excited to offer suggestions for locations and just give my expertise on that. But there are really a lot of options for people to go somewhere beautiful and get married now.
No matter what they like, right?
Exactly.
No matter if it's a lake, if it's a river, if it's a mountain, if it's the city, if they want city views. If they want to, I did one on the Okanagan River with a couple who loves to fish, and that was what they did
beautiful.
After their ceremony. Is they went fishing and caught all kinds of fish that day.
That's so great. I love that.
Truly is whatever they want. Your limit. It's limitless, really.
It really is. Yeah, they have a lot of options.
I would say that if they're having a professional photographer, some places, like especially if it's national park land, the Lake Diablo Overlook is an example of this. You have to get a permit.
Okay.
Even for an elopement, because if you have a professional photographer taking professional photos, they want to know who it is and what the photos are, I guess, but they require you to have a permit.
Okay, that makes sense.
Not easy to get one either, so.
I haven't come across that at all in any of the city parks. I don't think that's a requirement, but yeah.
Because I was kind of curious about that. I didn't know. And Ray, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to approach this from the opposite viewpoint and make sure that everybody knew that there are a lot of wedding venues out there who are doing very low cost elopement packages. And I know this because I'm hooked up with a lot of these venues that are doing these. So if you didn't want to deal with like all the logistics, you could go to one of these places and they've got a beautiful place to get married. They provide the officiant, the photographer, the flowers, etc. It's usually like on a weekday type of basis, and that's why they're able to keep the rates really low. So two different ways of approaching the same situation. You can do the logistics yourself, go to your officiant, say, okay, where do you suggest we get married? Or you could look at the venues that are already out there and see if they have an elopement package already for you, so you don't need to worry about any of that.
That comes with a planner.
Some of the venues are coming up with some beautiful packages. The Salish, I know you and Ray, you and I have been working up there doing their elopement package.
Yep.
Just again, making lemonade out of lemons. It's an industry that is, rising to the occasion.
Yeah, I just Bell Harbor, down at the waterfront, they had just called me yesterday about to do a streaming thing, because they were putting together like a lot of these, like you said, these venues are putting together, and like you said, it's a great thing because then it's all taken care of, it's beautiful, and like it's all allowed then. And then I'm like, then go do that. I don't even know the pricing on it, like $1,500 or like $1,100. Like they have different things. And then go do a nice dinner or something. Like we went to Salty's last night and it was great. And like we felt safe and they followed all, everything's all kosher. And like, that would be what I would be doing right now, and not trying to like fit this round peg into a square hole, and just, finding like Ray said, or like, either finding the place that's important to us, or finding the place, not that like has a good deal, but that's a benefit, right? Find one of these beautiful venues that maybe you couldn't afford. Maybe you could never afford to get married at wherever. But yeah, like you said, they're doing a weekday elopement and you can go on a, Thursday afternoon and do it. I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. The one I think of specifically is, because it's the one I first started doing elopements with, is Twin Willow Garden out in Snohomish. They're doing a real nice package. It's Monday through Thursday, and they pretty much provide everything at a really reasonable rate. Speaking of streaming, the last time I was there doing an elopement, his family was all in the Netherlands. Her family was in the Philippines. There was literally the three of us, a DJ, 3 photographers, 3 videographers. They had a lot of coverage and a lot of meeting. And then after the ceremony, they introduced the families to each other by taking the 2 laptops that were facing the altar and facing them to each other.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. I love that.
And then it was, like you said, Reed, it was going out to a nice dinner afterwards. And they're still going to do a big ceremony with the families coming in from around the world next year, presuming that, they can do that.
Yeah, I just think that is, it's just, and like you said, I can't remember when you guys earlier had said, then it's just a lot less stress even now. We did one over at Chateau Lille, and she's like, this is great. Like, I would have been so stressed today. This was awesome. We just kind of walked out and did a first look, and then we took a couple photos, and then we got married, and now we're done and we can go. I think they were just doing like a family barbecue thing, just at the house, but like, again, safe, within the family, whatever.
Doing an elopement doesn't mean that you're missing out on anything that you would have in a normal quote unquote wedding. We're still doing every aspect of the ceremony. A lot of people I've been talking to have been assuming, oh, you're just going to show up, sign the documents, wave your hand. No. We still do. We still have a prayer or a blessing. We have vows, and you can write your own. We have promises, rings, everything that you normally expect in a wedding, just in a shorter format.
You can literally do everything almost that you do at a large wedding. It's just a lot fewer people, and it can be just really special, really special.
Can you guys talk about that? Because I know that there is, like Ray just said, the officiant just shows up, whatever. But you guys all, you craft the ceremony, you work with the couple. I mean, can you talk about all that even with an elopement and just the services and stuff, how that still works and how you will still feel like you're really taken care of? Who wants to tackle that one first?
I will. I still provide the same 72-page document that I've always provided, although it's gotten a little larger. I provide a document that allows the couple to literally craft their own unique ceremony. I work with them to fine tune that. And if she wants to be walked in by her father, who might be one of the witnesses, I work with them on how to structure that. If they want to have music, pretty much I'm providing all the same services. It's just not as many people. I mean, the processional might be just the bride and her father. The music might be on Bluetooth, one song, but I'm pretty much doing everything that I've always done, with the elopements, that is.
Yeah. What usually doesn't happen, though, and Elaine, I think you'll agree with me here, is no rehearsal beforehand. Really no need for a rehearsal. You don't have all the bridesmaids, all the groomsmen. How do we walk in? Where do we stand? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's a lot more natural process.
It's kind of nice, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of like that part.
Even with the big weddings that have a big rehearsal, I always like to tell my couples that once you get up to the altar, you basically don't have to worry about anything.
That's
you
right.
can turn your minds off, concentrate on each other, because you're going to be doing what I tell you to when I tell you to do it. Mm-hmm. And because of that, the rehearsal, again, really isn't for the bride and groom. It's for the dad. It's for the bridesmaids, the groomsmen, the flower girl, all that kind of stuff that you typically don't have at an elopement.
And this isn't even related. I have to tell the story. We had a wedding on Sunday, and one of the groomsmen fainted like mid-ceremony. And I know that I'm sure you guys we've never seen that. I was there with the photographer, and Adam Teagues is the DJ. He was on our live streaming podcast we did weeks ago. And we had all done like a lot of weddings, and we had never seen that the guy, and luckily, because I was doing it myself, I just had like an extra GoPro in the back, just as like a kind of just a safety camera to have. And luckily it was because he was like the last one at the end, but you just see him and he's sitting there and he's got his shirt and you can kind of see him like, uh, and
Pulling
then,
on the collar.
yeah, like trying to get some air and then just like, but like wrestling bump, like felt like, I mean,
Oh, wow.
it was awesome. And so I had emailed the mother of the groom, who was the one that hired us, like the next day, and I said, "Don't worry, like we got it." And she was like, "Okay, good," because it was like, I mean, it was a good. He was okay, like everybody was okay, and they were, you know, he was kind of a jokester anyway, so I think it worked out. But I had to share that because I just was like, you know, even with, you know, there was like 15 people there. And then I'm like, thank God there wasn't 300 people. That would have been like a really bad, you know, in front of everybody.
I had that happen. I had that happen.
Yeah.
I had it happen once only, and it was a bridesmaid. And it was the first time I ever got to say in public, "Is there a doctor in the house?"
You know,
And there was.
my first fainter was the bride worked at a medical office, and her boss, the doctor, was there.
Oh, wow. The bride fainted?
No. One of the groomsmen fainted.
Oh,
The
okay.
bride, she worked at a medical office, and her boss, the doctor, was
Oh,
the.
good.
So he comes running up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we go today, this has been great. I want to what advice do you have, you know, for couples right now, you know, still planning, getting married right now? Maybe it's already things that you've been telling couples that you know, that you guys are working with, but what would you say? You know, I know that people are still so burnt out. People are stressed. People are, like you said, they're angry. They're, you know, we're trying to do the best we can. What would you guys tell people? Ray, we can start with you and go around, but what do you tell the couples?
I would say stay flexible. Figure that any plans you make are going to change because God only knows what's going to happen in the future, what's going to come out of Olympia as far as, well, now this week here's the rules and next week here's the new rules. So stay flexible, assume things are going to change, and most importantly, and I'm sure we'll all agree with this, the wedding couple, concentrate on each other and what you're doing and your relationship and the reason why you're doing this. The party's good. You want to celebrate because it's fun. It's all your friends and everything. But at the end of the day, you're not throwing a party. You're marrying the person that you love and want to be with for the rest of your life.
It's good. Chanelle, what about you?
One of the things that I do in each of my ceremonies, you know, they talk about their story, I give them their wishes. I give them homework for the rest of their life. And it is just for them to think about every moment as something special, even if it doesn't seem special at the time, because what it does is it adds to the depth and the richness of their story that they'll pass on to the generations of their family. So, you know, paying attention to the color of the leaves in the fall. You know, when they travel over the mountains and they go camping, actually stop, take photos of themselves next to the river and take a look, listen, because all of these things matter. You know, when you talk about, Ray, you know, focusing on each other, absolutely. And having these memories, these little jokes, finding out of the way spots for themselves, because what it does is it takes their thoughts off of all the big stuff and really just focuses on what's most important. And like Ray said, them getting married and building their life together, that's what's most important. But it's all those little moments that create the life. Yeah, the big ones too. COVID will be remembered, but what happens during COVID? You know, cooking every day together, gardening on the roof, because that's where they've created their garden, is in downtown Seattle on the roof of their building. You know, those are the things that you really want to pay attention to.
That's good.
That's super sweet. I love that. I agree with both of you. I think just trying to reel it in and remember how this all started. Like, why did you even plan a wedding? Whoa, what do you know? Because we love each other, and you know, it's all about us, really. Encouraging people to have hope, explaining that they have lots of options, and being that cheerleader that I was talking about earlier. Just really, you know, I've literally said to couples who have contacted me, how shared with them how proud I am of them for persevering, and that is so great that you're persevering and you're doing this, and I really applaud you. So being that cheerleader and helping guide them through whatever choices they have decided to make, but always, like you two said, reminding them that this was first and foremost about your love for each other. That's what really matters.
Yeah, I firmly agree with all that. I think having a thoughtfully put together ceremony, with them, maybe a couple friends, whatever, in a beautiful location, um, really focusing on that as opposed to trying to fake something and have everybody in masks and at tables and they can't stand, and it's, well, we can do our first dance but no one else can dance, and we can't have a DJ now, and we can't do this, and I just think focusing on like you said, you guys said, like the moments and them. I just think in 50 years you're going to remember that way more, and that's going to mean a lot more than like, well, we got to have a reception but it wasn't really, it didn't really whatever. So yeah,
but we didn't get to eat anything and
do anything.
I never understood this comment from my couples when I would have my, last consultation with them before the event, ask them how things are going. And I never understood it when they said, we can't wait till it's over.
Yeah.
Have you guys all heard that?
Yes.
I'm like, okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
So
we're missing the point.
Yeah,
totally. But that's kind of can happen at big weddings. So now we're creating something I think that might be a little more memorable for people.
You guys have all been so great. I really appreciate, like I said, again, all of you taking the time. I know you guys are crazy busy running around doing all these elopements. Does anyone else, any last thoughts, anything I didn't ask about, anything? We can go, I'll put everybody's information and all that, but anything else, any other last words just before we go, before I cut off some really amazing tidbit?
Can I just say that I really appreciate you, Reed. I mean, this is fantastic. I think our couples out there will appreciate the opportunity to hear from officiants and to, that there is hope. And I think this helps with that. Yeah. So I appreciate you. So thank you.
Well, thanks.
Yep, ditto. It was nice to meet Chanelle and Reed. Thank you.
Yes.
And Ray, I'll be on the phone to you next week, I'm sure, with questions about COVID.
Back and forth. Yeah, I try to give good information whenever I can, and I want everybody to know out there in the internet world that we are taping this in the morning, but I've not been drinking a beer. This is I just realized
I have
stuff like this and going, that looks just like a beer. No. Although the other day I was at Mischief Distillery in Fremont doing a noontime wedding, and I'm a big fan of rye whiskey, and I was so tempted to try some of the rye, but I had another elopement I had to go to later in the day. No drinking on duty.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you guys again. If you're listening, if you have questions in the future, you can go to bestmadevideos.com/survey, and I have all the different vendor types and everything categorized. If you have questions, we can put together roundtables. It's kind of gauging people's interest in what's going on. But I think COVID has really given us enough to kind of, work through as we go. So, but thank you guys again. I wish everyone, the best of luck and safety and, good health and everything going forward. So thank you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.